I've always been a hardcore gamer. I never got like the opportunity yet to sit down and play some like RPGs, right?
Yeah,
Role
yeah, yeah,
playing
yeah,
games.
yeah.
And so I've always played video games. But tell us a little bit like what is D&D?
Right on. So, Dungeons and Dragons, you said you play a lot of video games.
Right.
Basically, a lot of the stuff that you know in video games came from D&D. So, if you talk about like you're leveling up, you're increasing your stats, you're getting stronger weapons to take down stronger bad guys, right? Like all of that kind of originated from Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh
So,
wow.
so the idea is Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game, TTRPG. So what you do is you get a group of friends together. You can have like 2 people up to like 9 people. Like it's really just a way if you have like at least one other person you can play a game. I think the sweet spot is if you have like 4 to 6 people. It's probably the sweet spot in there. One person is the dungeon master, and it's the dungeon master's job. That's me on Dungeon Stories. I'm the dungeon master. Their job is to tell the story. So the way that it'll work is I'll kind of like set the scene for the players, right? So I'll say like you are walking through a forest at night. The moon is glittering overhead. You can see the stars in the sky. And as you are walking through this forest, you can see in the distance, through the fog, through the mist, there's a castle that's kind of growing larger on the horizon as you approach it. And as you make your way toward this castle, you watch as the drawbridge rises up in front of you and closes, cutting off your entrance into this castle. All of a sudden, out of the trees, a group of 6 goblins comes storming out, and they're screeching at you in their language that you can't understand. And then I say, "What do you do?" And that's the important part. Dungeons and Dragons is all about what do you do. After I set the scene, it's my job to sit back and let the players react, right? So my players will say, "Oh, well, I have a spell that lets me understand languages, so I'm going to try to talk to the goblins." Another player might say, "Well, I draw my bow and I fire. I'm going to attack them." So you can do basically anything that comes to mind. And when you say what you want to do, you'll roll your dice. So that player who's trying to talk to the goblins, I'll say, "Okay, what do you say?" And they'll tell me what they say. So they cast the spell. They can speak goblin now. The goblins can understand them. They say like they're like, "Hey, calm down. Let's have a conversation." And I'll say, "Okay, roll persuasion." So they're going to roll their dice, and depending how well they roll will depend how the goblins react. I'll kind of judge that. If they roll high, I'll say, "Okay, the goblins kind of put their weapons down. They're ready to listen to you." If they roll low, I might say, "The goblins think that you're making fun of them, and so they're gonna fire an arrow at you." And the person who says, "Oh, I'm gonna shoot my bow," they're gonna roll to see if they hit or not. The goblins are wearing armor,
Oh,
so
okay.
they have to roll high enough to see if they strike the goblin. And then if they can hit the goblin, they have to roll to see how much damage they do. And that's kind of where the game aspect comes in. So basically, what it is it's just collective storytelling. So I set up the world, I set up the scenario, and then I'm in charge of playing everyone in the world. I play the people that they talk to, the shopkeep that they're buying stuff from. I play the king who's sending them on the mission. I play the bad guys who are trying to take them down. The players are worried about their character. They choose what race and class they are, so whether they're like an elf wizard or maybe they're a dwarven fighter. So they choose who they are. They come up with a backstory for their character. So they say like, "I was born in this place. This is what I did all my life. This is why I'm adventuring." And they kind of give themselves a reason to be an adventurer. And then I take that story, work it into the story that I've prepared for them, and then we just kind of play off one another. It's a lot like improv. D&D works best if you have kind of a yes and mentality. Like what if I say something, it's the player's job to take it and expand upon it. And then
Gotcha.
whatever choice the players make, it's my job to take that and expand upon it. So there's no like one way that a game can go. It's always different every time based on what the players do, based on what I have prepared for the players. But on Dungeon Stories, we're telling a continuous story. So we've been playing now for like, we're coming up on 2 years of playing the same game with the same characters.
Wow.
And it's kind of like we started when the characters met and started hanging out, and they've gone on so many adventures together, and now they have this really big powerful bad guy who's kind of working in the background, and they're trying to take down this bad guy while also worrying about keeping their friends safe, or there's like a growing war between the humans and the dwarves that they have to worry about. So
Dang.
yeah, I like to explain D&D as like a coloring book, right? So as the dungeon master, it's my job to draw the outline.
Right.
It's the player's job to color it in. But I never know what colors they're going to use, or maybe they'll color outside the lines, you know?
Right.
But one way or another, we're creating this picture that we're going to put up on our fridge together at the end of it, you know?
That's awesome.